universe was unlocked right there, and I've lost it.
For some reason, the browser was not connecting to my mic. So thank you, Dirk and Kat and Jim and Katie Bragansky, Frank and Amanda. We all appreciate you saying that we cannot hear. Can we hear us now? I believe that we can because everything looks like it's going well here. Okay, so James?
Yes.
Wow. This is what I love about being live is because things go wrong and you just totally embrace it. Okay, James, start off with your quote again for the week. Start off with your quote.
I just forgot it now. Dave asked me what quote to share. So I'm a person of faith. One of the first scripture readings that I memorized was Matthew 6:33. The first part is about seeking God, but the second part is about not worrying about tomorrow. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So I live that in terms of there's so many worries and anxieties and things to think about in the future, but every day you just take it one day at a time, and it reduces stress and anxiety.
And we're going to take it one day at a time, and we're going to take it 1 minute at a time, especially because we lost our mic feed. So again, welcome to this episode of Live Beyond Default live stream. It's your weekly dose of personal growth, and it's episode number 87. My name is Dave.
And I'm James Cheng.
And today we are discussing freedom in the stillness. So thank you for joining us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And of course, you could check out the live stream recording on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Take out your notebooks. There's going to be a ton of nuggets that we're going to learn today because we are growth-minded. We are all self-reflective, and we are all willing to push ourselves beyond the default of what society wants us to be, beyond the default of what our brain says that we can't do this or we're not good enough. So thank you all for joining us today. Love it. Everybody can hear us. You're so awesome. Thank you so much. Hey. So James, share your gratitude again. One thing you're grateful for.
I'm gratitude. I'm just being here, just being present, being home. I mentioned that I grew up in Schaumburg, Rolling Meadows. And so after 25 years since graduation, living back at home and shared experiences to, I said commiserate, but really it's just to share experiences of how you grew up, these small nuggets of places that only local people know. I mean, when I lived away from the northwest suburbs, I used to tell people I'm from Chicago because nobody really knows where Rolling Meadows or Schaumburg is.
No.
But now that I'm back in the northwest suburbs, I have to be more specific because everyone knows that the suburbs in Chicago are not the same. And
no, they're not.
People know Rolling Meadows, so that's where I'm from. Actually, I'm now living in Hanover Park, so this is the area I'm back. So it's close to family and meeting people who grew up in the same era as I did, and even though we didn't know each other in high school or haven't talked to each other for over 25 years, because we all grew up and we're in the same area, there's a natural synergy, there's natural connection that happens organically.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I love that. Yeah. And thanks for being here today. Something I'm grateful for is this morning I got to watch the sunrise at about 5:20, 5:25. And something that's so amazing about the sun in the morning is it just has a glow because it's going through more atmosphere. And I did my Wim Hof breathing exercises out on my 5th floor terrace, which faces east. So that is something that I'm super grateful for, to have that peace and quiet and grounding right here in my building in downtown Arlington Heights. I'm just grateful to have the ability to do that because it grounds me for the rest of my day, whether it's this podcast, whether it's me talking to my bookkeeper later on, it's me meeting real estate clients later on. I love to be grounded. So let's just dive right into the topic, which is freedom in the stillness. We both picked the topic. We thought it was timely. We thought it was relevant. And we thought, most importantly, that you would get something from this. So let's just jump right into it. What does freedom in the stillness mean to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because when you think about freedom, you're looking about trying to do things, trying to achieve things, trying to look towards accomplishing things. But, even every accomplishment that you succeed at or fail at, there's always something more. So it's never very satisfying, because once you're done, you're looking at the next level. So I think we picked this topic in conjunction with ChatGPT, was to really just to think about relaxing, and then also reduce distractions. One example is Dave. Some guys don't know this, but Dave does a lot of stuff to prepare this podcast. And one of the things he does is actually cuts off the Wi-Fi. One, to have better stability, even though the microphone wasn't working. But with the Wi-Fi, you have all these other distractions with the TV, social media, your phones. So freedom to stillness, I think, is a lost art in terms of trying to reduce distractions and just allow yourself to think about, be aware of your thoughts. That's why we kind of chose this too. Is one of my studies, I did a spiritual formation kind of a master's.
Oh.
And one of those things was to think about how your mind and how you talk to yourself. So anyways.
Do you think that we have freedom when it comes to our thoughts? I think we have a lot of choices. I think we have too many choices. Mm-hmm. But are we really even living our own lives? It's like we grow up and our parents and siblings and teachers and bosses, who all did the best they could with what they had, they're all putting things in our head. And now we may be living the lives that they wanted us to live because of how they conditioned us or what they put into us. And then on top of it, were they really living their own lives? So now we have people that raised us or that conditioned us from the beginning, who wanted us to live or be a certain way, but then they weren't living their own lives. So now it's like we get into this spiral of what our frame is, how we look at things, how we view the world, what our lens is. And that could be a freedom in itself. So I know that kind of got deep right in the beginning, but
real deep. We're going deep, man.
But that's what we're doing.
Thursday morning, deep philosophical questions. Are we really who we are?
Yeah, well, so talk about that a little.
I would say this. I mean, there is a subconsciousness of your inner voice. So one example I would say is, like, sometimes you watch a movie and all of a sudden you start crying, or for some reason you get emotional.
Okay.
This is where I think psychology comes into play, is that your emotions are a symptom of something deeper in your heart. So there is people who are controlled by their emotions, and if they're not aware of it, they'll continue to be controlled by it. I think one of the biggest first steps that we all have to take is being aware of our thought patterns, our emotions. Because once we're aware of it, then we have a choice to whether we believe that and have a choice on how we react to that. So I think we all have subliminal, subconscious reactions that, unless we're aware of it, we will be controlled by it. So I'll give another example.
Okay.
Let's say I am avoiding somebody because I am jealous of certain things about them. Let's say that I believe that I was an idea that you believe about yourself, like a pose, like I want to be the smartest person in the world. That's an identity issue.
Okay.
And then you find somebody else who's actually smarter than you. And if you're not aware of these inner thoughts of jealousy, of like, oh man, this person's smarter than me. How can that be? That's not true. You try to discount their abilities. This is some things that would erupt into your subconsciousness. Now that I'm aware of this, like, oh, I'm not necessarily the smartest person in the world, but also I can appreciate somebody who's smart as well. And I also want to not only not avoid them, but I can then appreciate and connect with them at a deeper level. So I would say that's being aware of your emotions and your thought patterns. It all starts really in quietness, in journaling, in your 5 to 10 minute quiet times during the day or the week. Because if you don't review your thought patterns, you're going to continue to just be in the subconscious trap, as you said. People who've conditioned you to think a certain way. Yeah. People who've maybe imposed their own idea of how you should live versus your own passions and your heart desires. So, and it's important. I think that's maturing.
I love that. That is a huge golden nugget right there. So being aware of your emotions and being aware of your thought patterns. We're all self-aware here. We're all self-reflective. But how aware are we? when we're getting bombarded by thousands and thousands of ads every day, when we're getting bombarded by people and free smells at the food place, and so much on social media, and so much that's vying and pulling and buying our attention, how aware are we of our thoughts? And that's something to be self-reflective on, and something to remember and to think about throughout the day. I almost like to look at it as like auditing your thoughts throughout the day. And that could look something like that on the threes, meaning 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., 9 p.m. Like every 3 hours, kind of looking back for 5 minutes and saying, what was I thinking about? What did I do? How did I react to this? Did I respond correctly, or did I react to something because I wasn't aware of my emotions? Maybe not being the smartest guy in the room, which I will say
You are
is the best place to be.
Yeah. Always be humble. Yeah.
Is not to be the smartest guy in the room. Raghu says, good morning, guys. I'm really grateful to know you both. I'm looking forward to hearing James's wisdom this morning. I've learned so much from him over the past 3 years. Raghu, I've learned a lot from you too. Always be connecting. Thank you for the shirt, brother. I so appreciate that.
I was going to wear the hat, but I just felt like it'd be too much right now.
It's too much. Oh, I love it. So yeah, as we dive into freedom in the stillness, you also said something that was really important, I thought. It's that quiet time. It's that journal time. It's that meditation time. What is one or two things right off the bat that you could share with the audience in a simple way to start grounding? A simple way to start being more self-reflective? One or two things.
I think the simple way, I was just thinking about that when you said that, is the one way is just at the end of the day, write down on a piece of paper. I know it takes a little bit of work, but just 5 minutes throughout the day, your memory of your most emotionally charged moments.
Okay.
So for instance, throughout the day, I gave the example of being jealous, or today I got really angry. And then what you need to do is ask, why did I get angry? And so like a 5-year-old asking why? Well, because maybe I thought I was the smartest guy in the room. I felt threatened about my identity. I felt like, why is this so important to me? Maybe in terms of childhood, I got a lot of validation from my parents if I'm getting good grades. These are some of the things you got to chase down. So you start realizing why you're thinking these things. When you do this enough consistently for every day for a month or 2 months, it becomes automatic. So that instead of at the end of the day realizing that you were emotionally charged, you can think of instantly, oh man, I'm angry right now. Why am I so angry? I can stop now. And then I have a way to react and respond right away in real time versus, man, I got angry today. I'm so angry at myself. I'm supposed to not be angry. I'm supposed to control my anger. You know, people say about controlling your anger. I think that's not true. I think that we can't control our emotions. We can respond to our emotions. So one of the examples is not just jealousy, but also in terms of, in scripture, it says that don't be angry with your brothers, or if you commit murder in your heart. Don't be jealous. But it's not like you can say, oh, stop being jealous, stop being angry. Yeah. It's just, hey, I'm angry. I'm jealous right now. Yeah. What is going on? What's going on inside my heart that's causing me to be angry? So one of the things I talk about is Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. And one of the things is that we have 9 basic needs. And that's, the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? We all need food, we need sleep and all that stuff. So this example I always give, you've heard the term being hangry, hungry, and angry.
Yes.
So that's a very basic need in terms of sustenance, that when you're hungry, you're going to be short of temper. You're going to be angrier. So that's why when people actually eat, they feel calm. Sleep is something else. So those are some of the basic needs that we have to be aware of. The other one is autonomy, creativity, love. So these are some of the lesser known basic needs that we need. But if you're aware of those basic needs, then you realize, oh man, something in my, love tank or your cup is not being filled.
Or your sleep tank. Dave, he loves that sleep. I am all about the sleep. One of my
How did that happen? Did it just go hard?
Yeah.
That was crazy.
I have it set on my computer here. Put it down here. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
See? So it'll pick it up.
I thought my hands couldn't do it.
Yeah, it'll pick it up. Well, you talked about responding and reacting, and I like to share the word. And thank you. I love to share responsible, and I take the word responsible and I break it down. Response-able. able to respond? Are you able to respond to this situation? Are you able to respond when your significant other says something to you that maybe triggers you? Are you able to respond when your kid is screaming in public? Are you able to respond when that client is challenging you on a deal that you want so bad? There's that outcome dependence. So I like the fact that you brought up responding versus reacting, but also those 9 buckets that you said, and being aware of those 9 buckets where maybe one of them is not filled up in your life and you need to jam on that more and dive deep. Brandon says, we go against the grain when we unhinge everything. We have learned to be our own people. Yes, we do go against that grain. And I think that's a great point, Brandon. I think that's a great point that he brings up.
Awesome point. I think everybody has an idea of how they should live, but how their idea of how they should live or how you should live is not necessarily best for you. So exactly what you say as you become unhinged is really you have to decide what's best for you. And a lot of people don't do that. They all try to live up to their parents' expectations, their peers' expectations, or even society's expectations. But really that might not be something that jives with your heart or your mindset. And so being aware of what excites you, what's your passions, those is a path that's less forced. That's less forced. What's that? Robert Frost quote, 2 roads diverged, and I took the path less traveled.
Yes.
And some people think it's whether it's 2 roads, or maybe it's a 3rd road that's never been traveled before, and that's the one less traveled.
Oh, that was good. Maybe it's a 3rd road. Oh, Cheng, now that was good, man. That was good. You pulled that out. I absolutely love that. Let's do a brief shift here to how we met. You know, so many people. You're sitting in a blue chair where a lot of famous people have sat here. Okay, coming live from the loft, and what I love is a lot of people that sit next to me here and do this live stream. I met them in an interesting way, and I truly mean that. A lot of people that sit here, I don't really know that well. Now, I know you pretty well, and part of why I got to know you well right off the bat was because of how we met. So share a little bit about how we met, if you remember.
I remember. I remember. Back then you had a long beard, kind of like a very old wise sage.
Oh, a wise sage.
That's right.
People still bring up, they're like, oh, Dave, you shaved your beard. I'm like, dude, that was 2 years ago when I shaved.
I know.
But it stuck out and it was very memorable. That was a very interesting social experiment.
Okay.
That beard.
Oh,
and
really?
we'll talk about that another time. But so yeah, share how we met, because I always it's so different meeting people now compared to how it was 5 years ago, compared to how it was 30 years ago. And I just thought we met in an interesting way.
I mean, I just moved back to Schaumburg recently. I didn't know anybody. A lot of my friends had already graduated and moved away from high school. I haven't talked to them in a while. So one of the things that was recommended to me was to join networking groups. So Schaumburg was one of the biggest networking groups to join. So I joined that, and they have every month, every Thursday, last Thursday of the month, Coffee and Contacts. And Dave is the moderator and the host of Coffee and Contacts. And at the end or the beginning, he just said, hey, if you're interested in being an ambassador, we're looking for volunteers, come approach me. And I'm just a guy who's like, if you need help, I'm going to volunteer, because that's the best way to get to know people and create influence and be a positive change. I mean, isn't that the Mahatma Gandhi quote? Is just like, be the change you want to be?
Yes.
That's the one.
For sure.
So he said, we need more ambassadors. And I go up to Dave and I'm like, hey, you need an ambassador? I'm ready. Let's go. I didn't know that there were requirements to be an ambassador. Like, you had to be in the Schaumburg Business Association for at least 1 year. And Dave looks at me like, who are you? He didn't say that, but his body language basically said, I don't know who you are, and you want to volunteer to be ambassador. Now that I've been here for a while, I understand why it's a year requirement, because you have to actually know the rules to help people, learn about kind of the things to do. But also, when you're actively in a networking group like Schaumburg, you see the same people over and over again. So you kind of know people regularly. So I bet Dave, being here so many years, saw this random Asian dude be like, "Hey, I want to be an ambassador," and he's like, "I've never even seen you before in my life."
Yeah.
So, but
I was like, who's this guy? It was the greatest thing ever.
it was awesome because Brandon invited me to a baseball game, which I'd never been, like a minor league baseball, the Schaumburg Boomers. And that's when Dave was there. And really got to know him. I brought my family. So thank you, Brandon, for that. Never forgot that. So we got to know him more of in a casual setting. And then we found out that we both graduated from the same high school. So
go Vikings.
Fremd Vikings, William Fremd High School. So green and gold. Rock the green and gold.
So it's the story of how we met. And I can look here and see Brandon is chimed in, Kat chimed in, Dirk, even Katie Bergansky, Frank, and Jim Lahuchek. Like, everybody that I'm seeing throw up comments, like I met in a certain way, and there's a story behind all of them, and I absolutely love it. But thank you for sharing that because, James walked up and is like, I want to be an ambassador. And part of, like, I think my body language was just like, who's this guy think? I've never met him before, and he's just asking me. And you know what's funny about that? A lot of the reason why I reacted, or a lot of the reason why I responded that way is because I saw a lot of me in what you were doing. So here, it's like I was like resisting myself. I'm like, who's this guy coming up? I'm like, yeah, Dave, that's exactly what you do. You like roll up to people and you ask them for stuff, or you say, hey, I'll do that. And then we did meet at the Boomers game, thanks to Brandon Cork, and I got to meet your family, which was super cool. That's where we really connected. And then when it came time to becoming an ambassador, James is an ambassador now, but here was a cool thing too. He wanted to speak at Coffee and Contacts, which is something he asked that first time too. And I was like, no, you can't speak. Well, what ends up happening was we're picking people for the next year, and he had applied. He was in China, and we needed somebody to speak and kick off the year for February. It was like the end of December, beginning of January. And I was like, oh yeah, James, he's the guy that came up to me last year. He seems like he's been working hard. He wants to speak at Coffee and Contacts. Good. You could be February. How about that? And I threw it out to him in the text. And like an hour later, he's in China. He says, yeah, I got you. And he knocked it out of the park at Roosevelt College in Schaumburg. So that was super cool. And and I just love it. I could tell by my inflection and how I'm talking. I'm like, it was just such a fun like beginning and how we met. So thank you again for hopping on, whether you're on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. And of course, watching the replay on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This is Live Beyond Default LiveStream episode number 87. Let's take a couple more comments here, and then I want to know a little bit about James's childhood, a little bit about some turning points in his life. Okay, Dirk says, this conversation is very timely. My choice to focus on exploring and learning has grown my knowledge, but silence and self-reflection is needed for my continued growth. Thank you for your recommendations to help find the right balance of learning and self-reflection that leads to personal growth. Boom. I love that. Couldn't have been said better by Dirk or by
Dirk's great.
James. Kat says, the quote I live by. Love that. Katie Bergansky, Frank, love this story. Jim Lahuchek, yes. Okay, James, share a little bit about your younger side, your younger life, your family side, but most importantly, like, was there one or two pivotal moments in your life, in your childhood that you remember that you think shaped you today? Or there's something that you do today because this person showed me that, or this person told me that?
So as I said before, I grew up in Rolling Meadows, but didn't go to Rolling Meadows High School. We consider that the wrong side of the tracks. I was west of Meacham, if you guys know Plum Grove Road. So that allowed me to go to Fremd High School. And the memory that stands out is that I applied to the West Point, which is the United States Military Academy. And you need 3 recommendations. And I used to be in gymnastics. So I asked my gymnastics coach to write my recommendation. And normally I don't look at the recommendations, even though I should. I guess, I don't know, I was weird about that. But I opened up his recommendation, and one of the first things he said is, James is not a natural leader. And it's true, I'm not a natural leader. I'm an introvert. I don't even, like, the speaking stuff was really something that's learned. And so what that taught me is that after going through West Point and the Army, I mean, that's what they teach you is, once you graduate from West Point, you have to be in the Army as an officer. And then after going to deployments and then also going to business school, through all this process, I think leadership can be learned. Emotional quotient, one of the things they teach you at business school is that EQ is actually, if not more important than IQ, because you have to be a leader. You have to know your people. You have to know yourself. And I do believe, whereas IQ, maybe you can be learned, I'm not sure, because there's knowledge that to increase, but I do definitely believe that EQ can be increased. And one of those ways is self-awareness. So I think through that whole process, I think that was a defining moment for me. It's like, wow, I'm not a natural leader. And back then, maybe I didn't have such a strong identity. So one of the reasons I wanted to go to West Point was to prove to people that I was somebody special. After many years later, I think it's a little bit more to say that through the experiences and some of the successes and even failures, you learn that. You ever heard of main character syndrome?
No. What is main character syndrome?
It's this idea that we're the main character of the story.
Okay.
And in some ways it's true, but in other ways you're not. You're not the main character. And so when you realize that you're important, but you're also not that important, it's freeing to let go and say, letting go of expectations.
Yes.
Say, I'm going to do the best I can, and whatever happens, regardless of the results, it's going to fall what may, and we adapt to the situation. So I've removed myself from main character syndrome, just to say, you know what, I'm here to help and provide value to whoever it may be. And if they're successful, then I'm successful as well. So
you said a lot there. Gymnastics coach, do you still keep in contact with this person?
I should. I have not. I should reach out to him.
Yeah.
He was older already, though. He's already in the 60s. So it was.
Send him an email. I bet you could find him online.
If everybody knows Bob Ferguson, let me know. That's him.
Oh, Coach Ferguson.
Coach Ferguson.
Yes.
You know Coach Ferguson?
Well, he was younger when I went there because I'm older than you.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Coach Ferguson.
There we go. I'll bet you could find him. I actually found my grade school piano teacher.
Oh, yeah.
The music teacher that would play piano
at
Hunting Ridge in Palatine, just because I put her name and some other things in there. And then I was able to find a whole list of teachers with their email addresses. So I emailed her and she emailed me back. I kid you not, within 10 minutes. She didn't remember me, but she knew it was for real because I sent her something that she used to say on a regular basis.
This is what I'm talking about, is that who would know who Bob Ferguson is unless you grew up around here, went to from high school, and look at this guy. It's like, oh, I know that guy.
I know Bob Ferguson. Okay, so you're not a natural born leader. I remember when they used to say to me on the report card, David lacks self-control. Great thing to put into a creative guy's head as a kid. Great thing to put into a boy's head as a kid, right? And that affected me greatly throughout my life. Okay, so now you decide to go to West Point. I'm going to just go register.
Yeah, so back then, I didn't want, I thought I had to make something out of my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that would be. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life.
And why was that the out? Or why was that the in?
Well, so I had my best friend, Jason Blonstein, if you guys all know him. At the time, he was applying to West Point. He's like, you should apply to West Point as well. I'm like, why not? 4 years in college and then 5 years active duty military. That's 9 years. I was thinking, like, it's a reputable school. Also in the history books, it has a lot of legacy. Yeah, so I felt like it could open doors for me and not close them. So it really was a deferment of, okay, 9 years later, I don't have to decide what I want to do. So that's basically why it was, just once again, I wanted to do something special. I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. My best friend was going there, and I didn't have to decide what I want to do with my life. Little did I know, 9 years later, I still didn't know what I want to do with my life. So it just the continual, repeatable instance for me is that I just don't know what I want to do with my life. So I just figured out what's the next best thing. So so that's why I went. Yeah,
that's a super cool story, and thank you for your service. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that. You also said something about the being the main character, and I love not being outcome dependent. And you also said you're doing the best you can. What do we always say on this show? We're all doing the best we can with what we have at this time, always. And we are. getting back to the cast of characters, have you ever looked around and recognized the cast of characters that are in your life's movie?
Was what that was at the seven habits of highly effective people. You're influenced by the 5 closest people you're around.
Yes. And now taking that to more of a story and a movie, because that is a very dry, yes, we are the combination of the 5 people we hang out with the most. Mm-hmm. That's a very dry, very pragmatic way of looking at it. Now let's look at it as a cast of characters, right? It's like, if you're hanging out with Beavis and Butthead, they're not going to throw the orb into the ring like Frodo may or something. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, sure. I'm generalizing, and I'm glad that you brought it up, just because I've been looking at that a lot lately. Like, maybe I am the main character at times, not always, but most importantly, who's in the movie of Dave's life? Right. Who's in the movie of your life, and how do you look at that?
Yeah, I think who you hang out with, you'll definitely be influenced. But I would say also this is, I think Martin Luther King said this, is that, are you the thermostat or are you the thermometer? So what does that mean, right?
Boom, say that again.
Are you the thermostat or are you the thermometer? Okay, so a thermometer measures the temperature of the room. A thermostat actually changes the temperature of the room. So in one way, you're influenced by your friends, and you're seeing, we all, I think human nature want to be part of a tribe, a community. I mean, I think it's innate in all of us. Now, who your tribe is, you can choose and pick and choose, and you'll be influenced by them. The other aspect is that if you're a person of influence, and so that's what leadership is really leadership. I take that from John Maxwell, is that, are you also influencing your cast of characters to be able to be the type of person you want to be, or the type of group that you want to hang out with. So those are the things that self-awareness can help you, is the first step. But then self-awareness is not the end. Part of it is, I used to say it was just attitude and reaction. Those are the things you can control, because you can't control anybody else. But I recently heard it was a coffee and it was a Good Morning Schaumburg. One of the ladies who was a hockey player says the EAR method. So it's not just attitude and response, but it's effort. So effort, attitude, response are the 3 things you can control. Everything else you kind of can let go. So,
are you taking notes? There are so many golden nuggets being dropped right here, and I love that thermometer and the thermostat. Yeah. How often are you the thermometer versus the thermostat?
Well, and also being a thermostat, there's risk, because we don't like to be rejected. Like, part of psychology talks about, we have this pose or shadow self, or the ideal self, the person we think we like to be, because we want people to view us through that paradigm or that prism.
Yes.
But Brene Brown talks about authenticity.
Yes.
And what is authenticity? And the problem is with that shadow or pose self or ideal self is that nobody connects with that, because it's too much on the pedestal. So Brene Brown talks about, there's a great TEDx or TED speech, which is the power of vulnerability. And people talk about being vulnerable, and that's a little bit of it, but really what it is revealing your shame. So he talks about guilt and shame. Guilt is what you feel bad of what you did, but shame is you feel bad of who you are. So part of
very big distinction there. Did we all get that? That's a very big distinction of talking about the process versus the person. Mm-hmm. Right? So guilt is talking about the process. You're feeling a certain way about what you did, mm-hmm. but shame is feeling bad about who you are.
Correct.
Big difference, process and people. And that could be applied into business and your personal life in many ways.
Yeah, and it's scary. So when people talk about vulnerability, they think about transparency, and they talk about how they're thinking. That's only a small part of it.
Yeah.
Real connection talks about your weaknesses. So when you're ashamed about something, which is something that most people want to hide. So for instance, I always give the example, I'm not ashamed about it anymore, but as an immigrant, my parents immigrated from Taiwan, and growing up in America, you just don't speak that language. I just don't speak Chinese. I can understand a little bit. English is my first language. So I always used to be ashamed of when people spoke Mandarin around me. I'm like, oh man, I'm supposed to know it, but I can't do it. Or maybe another stereotype is that as Asians, we're supposed to be good at math. And so maybe it's like, oh shoot, I'm not as good as math. I can't get a perfect score in the SAT. Does that make me a lesser person? So one of the things you need to do to connect with people is to reveal your hurts, your shame, because people can identify that with you and they'll connect with you when you're vulnerable with somebody, weak with somebody. You're more likely to be a safe person. And so when you're a safe person, then they're more likely to reveal their vulnerabilities and their weaknesses and their shame as well. The scary thing about that shame, though, is that people can use that against you. So,
yes, they can.
So when you reveal that shame, oh, I can't speak Mandarin, then people's like, oh man, you're Chinese and you're Taiwanese, you can't speak Mandarin. You could feel hurt by that. But if you have a strong identity and you know your value, then you're like, well, I can't speak it, but you know what? I have other strengths besides that weaknesses. I'm good at these certain things. So that's this whole process of knowing who you are, knowing your value, and being okay with some of your weaknesses, because like not everybody's good at everything, and you're made in a certain image, and that's how you are. You can now try to overcome it, either like learn. So one of the things I did is actually went to China to learn Mandarin. I'm still not good, but
you're learning.
But I do have other strengths, which is I'm aware of my emotions. I do think I do have some leadership value because I've been through leadership.
Oh, you have a lot of it.
So I'm okay with just being mediocre in other things, but being strong in other things. So
yeah, you know what? The hell with everybody. How about you and I just go to Chef Ping? I love Chef Ping. Come on.
You know, I used to, before I went to China, I actually loved Panda Express. Like that was the place to go. Panda Express was awesome because when I lived in Chicago, I was only 4 blocks from Chinatown. Never went there because I never appreciated the different Chinese foods. Now that I've lived in China for 3 or 4 years now, I can appreciate good, authentic Chinese. So my wife's Chinese too. So
yeah, she is.
She basically can tell me like, okay, this is authentic and stuff like that. So and China's big. I don't think people realize how big China is. I mean, we think in our mind, but I remember I lived in Beijing and people are like, hey, I'm going to go visit in China. I'm like, where are you going to go? And they're like, oh, Shenzhen. I'm like, well, Beijing and Shenzhen are 2 opposite areas. You know, a flight from Beijing to Shenzhen is like 3 or 4 hours. So you coming to visit in China is like you saying, I'm going to come to Los Angeles, James. Can we meet up? No, I'm in Chicago. We can't meet up. It's not possible. So anyways.
That is good. I love that. Well, let's throw up a couple comments here. Katie Bergansky Frank says, I like what you said about not being the main character. I always felt like my role isn't to take the spotlight, but to hold the lantern. Love that. With friends, with sports, with my kids, with companies. Being the guide, elevating others and helping them shine. Dude,
that's great.
These chime-ins are just amazing. KBF, love you. Thank you for that. Ragu says, I love how you took your gymnastic coach's words and used it as a positive motivation. Also love your thoughts on the importance of EQ. Yes, EQ versus IQ. The first person that ever introduced me to EQ, I will say, is the owner of Jimmy John's.
Oh, okay.
Back in the 90s. Yeah, Jim Leotoad. Now, I know a lot of people don't like him because he rhino hunts and he got all this backlash because as he got more popular. And I remember Jim Leotoad standing up and saying, me and my son are starting a new restaurant and it's going to go nationwide in a matter of a few years. I remember him announcing that at a dinner where I was sitting a table away from him. But he also used to bring up regularly emotional intelligence and how important emotional intelligence is and this was back in the 90s, how important it's going to be because the world is moving that way because these other skills are going to be able to be duplicated, but not EQ. So
I'm just smiling because we was talking about Jimmy John's. I was just talking about my first job ever was Garibaldi's. So local but it wasn't the main store Garibaldi's. It was the swimming center. So Garibaldi's used to have a concession stand and a swimming pool.
Which pool?
I forgot what it was. But
around here in the Northwest Burbs. Got it.
And I remember once again, my best friend, Jason Blonstein, he's like, hey man.
Is he Jewish?
He's half, yes. He is, yes.
Blonstein, it sounds Jewish.
So he said, hey man, it's an easy job. You just heat up pizza and you just look at girls all day. And I said, I remember, you know what the pay was? It was $4.75 an hour. $4.75 an hour.
And you're outside.
You're outside, but you're not. So here's the thing, though. You're not really outside. You're in a concession stand. It's busy. You're just heating up pizza to give people. You're not really making any pizza, okay? So my other buddy, Jason Ziolo, he's in Crystal Lake now. He said, hey, man, why don't we go work at, I think it was Office Max at the time. Now it's known as Office Depot off of in Schaumburg off Roselle.
Off Roselle, yeah.
And I think the pay there was increased of $5.25 an hour. And that was
$5 an
that
hour.
was my second job. Is this over the summers? I made a little bit more money, but I was stacking computers and stuff like that over. Once again, imposter syndrome. I worked in the computer section. People would ask me about computers. I had no idea.
Of course, they're asking you about computers.
I was like, so I would pretend, and I felt bad because there was an older gentleman who was retired. He knew so much more about computers, but he would be able to answer them, and I couldn't answer them at all. And I was like jealous. So that's another example where, like, if you're not aware of it, I felt jealous of this older guy. The guy has like 50 years of experience on me, and of course he knows more than me. But I was a young high school student that wanted to prove myself then.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely I love that. Carlton says we need to trust to be vulnerable, and we need to be vulnerable in order to build trust. Very profound, Carlton. Thanks for chiming in. Thomas, good morning. Thanks for hopping on. Kat says math plus Asians myth equals a lie. American Asians have a difficult time finding their way. It's a cultural society issue. You know what I'm going to say, Kat, who's going to be on in 2 weeks? What I'm going to say, Kat, is when you take 300 cultures and throw them in America, which is not that big. It's big, but it's not that big. When you take 300 cultures and throw us all together, we all have a difficult time finding our way. I have an immigrant mom who actually came here on a boat. Dude, not a plane, a boat, okay? Because they weren't flying planes back then. And she's Polish. But did she come from Poland? No. Why? Because Poland was getting leveled. So she was actually born in an internment camp in West Germany. Now, she was born there and they were taken care of. Why? Because my grandma, Babsha, was a nurse. So they needed Babsha's services in the internment camp in West Germany. So it wasn't like a hard labor camp that my mom's family and my Babsha and Jaji were a part of. But we all have these different frames. We all have a difficult time finding our way. Not that it wasn't hard for you and you had certain things to live up to, but imagine even what that's like now. Because now you're seeing everything on social media, having to live a certain way. You can't even make fun of stereotypes anymore because gosh forbid that you offend anybody because you say a stereotype, which a lot of times is freaking true about people, okay? But people take it the wrong way and it's micro offensive or it's cultural appropriation, okay? And I say that in a certain way too. We're all having a difficult time finding our way. It's a cultural society issue. And Kat, we're going to talk about more of that when you come on. Heather says a new skill as AQ, adaptability. Ooh, a new skill, AQ. So we have IQ, EQ, and AQ. Heather always chimes in with something good. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. So
let me give you an example of mindset, though. So I have a buddy who's also Asian, like myself. He was a gymnast before as well, and I'm not tall. I'm 5'5". Okay, I'm a giant among Asian Taiwanese, but he's 5'3", and we're going to this room, and we're kind of the minorities there. And his mindset is like, oh man, I should like shrink in because I feel like people are judging us. And my mindset is like, oh man, and I'm an introvert, by the way. He's an introvert as well, but my mindset was like, oh, we have something to offer people because they don't know who we are. This is an opportunity to get to know people and show value. So even though we have the same background, gymnastics, he went to I think Wonderline, I forget. If you're outside District 211, I don't even know who you are. But he basically, he grew up around here. We have the same background, but the mindset's different. It's like where he felt like, oh man, I feel like people are judging me. I'm in there going like, hey, we have something to offer. And I think that's what we all have to have that mindset. Is like, you're special, you're different, you have a fingerprint, you're a snowflake, but your background, people don't understand who you are. They only see maybe a caricature on TV or newscast. Knowing somebody personally gives that subtlety, that nuance of saying, hey, maybe that stereotype of Asians all being math is not true. I met James and he's horrible at math. So maybe that can ruin that expectation that all Asians are math conscious. So
yeah.
Or proficient.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, we're diving in here. And I'm loving this talking about stereotypes because this has a lot to do with what's going on in the world today and what's going on in our brains. Here's something that, oh gosh, time, 48 minutes in. Okay. Here's something I wanted to ask you that I ask everybody about that sits on the blue chairs. Your experience in 2020. Now we're talking about freedom in the stillness. Okay, that's our topic. I'm shifting positions here because I'm fired the F up about this. Okay, it's been 5 years since lockdown happened. What have you been doing? What have I been doing? What has this guy been doing? What have we all been doing these last 5 years? Put that mirror up to your face. That's not a warning. That's just a thought. And it's something to think about, because before you know it, it's going to be 2030 and we're going to be saying WTF happened to these last 10 years because it's going by so fast. So James Cheng, your experience in 2020, did you just survive or did you thrive?
Probably a little bit of both. So let me explain the situation.
I would love that.
I'm in China, already 3 years in. I love China. I mean, it's just the different foods, the culture. Being an expat foreigner, there's people are kind of sort of interested in you, but also you as in leadership, you're influencing people, you're sharing the culture of America. A lot of people, they're like, you look like me, but you don't, because you look like me, but you don't speak like me. And so
they're always curious about you.
Yeah, there was opportunities to talk. And so I thought I was going to live the rest of my life in China. I was learning Chinese. I was actually going full time. I took a sabbatical from work. I was going to learn full-time Chinese. And then in the middle of the school year, COVID happens. It started in China. That's not so crazy to say. So China was shut down actually at the beginning of January, February. So I'm in Beijing and I'm like, I'm newly dating this girl. And I'm like, okay, this is, we're just going to sit here and, just settle down. But I had to go back to America because I had some family issues.
Okay.
And it's like, I'm not doing anything in China anyways. How about I just fly back to America and help out some family members? During that time, if you guys remember, China closed the borders. So you couldn't enter back into China like end of March. And, remember people's mindset back then. It's like, oh, this is COVID. It's just a few weeks. It'll be done by Easter. So like, okay, I'll just chill out in America for a little bit. I mean, I literally just left my stuff there because I thought I was going to go back. I had a carry-on suitcase because I could survive off my carry-on. And also when you check in your bags, people who travel a lot, if you check in, sometimes it gets delayed. And also you have to wait an hour or two to pick up your luggage. When you have a carry-on, you're off and you're in your taxi before even people pick up the luggage. So I had a carry-on.
Keep going.
I have all my stuff in my apartment. COVID happens. China closes its borders and we think it's going to go over and it doesn't. So going to the summer, I'm doing a long distance relationship with my girlfriend. And then October rolls around and still no sign in sight of opening the borders. And so we're like, this is already 10 months in. I don't have a job. I don't know what we're going to do. What's going to happen? So we decided that I proposed to my girlfriend over Zoom in October. Not the most romantic.
Proposing over Zoom.
That's not the most romantic.
Oh, I love that.
You love that. Not my wife. She's my wife now. And we're like, okay, where can we meet? And the only place that we knew that would accept our visas was Turkey. So Turkey was still open to both China and the United States.
There was no such thing as COVID in Turkey.
There was. I don't recommend this. But so we flew to Holland, transferred there, met up there, and then went to Turkey, got married. But after that, I didn't have much of a plan after that. I was like, let's just meet up, and then we'll figure it out after there. And whatever happened in Turkey was basically because even though their borders were open, a lot of places were closed. And my wife then, she's Chinese. Turkey, they speak Turkish. And they speak some English with a heavy accent. So I could sort of understand them, but she had no idea what they were talking about. And so basically I had to do all that stuff, which included getting a marriage. Even though we got married, we had to get a marriage license. I happened to get a gold card visa to Taiwan, which was nice. So in Taiwan, they were allowing people who are not just citizens, but also gold card visa holders, the special talent people, to go to Taiwan. The problem, though, is that they didn't recognize our marriage in Turkey. Taiwan had a rule that basically said you had to be married in your home country. But they made it an exception for us because it was kind of allow foreigners. Since America recognized our marriage, Taiwan made an exception for us. And the reason I know that is because when we finally entered Taiwan, they had these gold card like Zoom calls, and one of the guys said, I told him our story. He said, "Oh, I know your story." They were actually debating this at the federal level of Taiwan, whether or not to allow you guys in, and they were the only exception to allow you guys in. So wow. So during 2020 though, we're in Turkey and we're like, okay, what do we need to do? Well, one, I need to get a marriage license. Number two, we had to become permanent residents in Turkey, because when you work with the embassies in Turkey, they don't want a tourist visa because you're not really there for a long time. So you had to get a permanent residence visa and also your marriage had to be notarized. So what does that mean to be notarized? It's basically you go to the local judge or notary, then you go to like kind of like the regional, and then like the third one, which is like kind of national, and then that allows you to go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which then recognizes it, and then you could go to the embassy, which then they approve that this is a real marriage. So that was basically 6 months of Turkey, not knowing how to speak the language, and basically.
And you were in Turkey this whole time.
The whole time.
Whole time. And what was Turkey like?
It would. I mean,
besides COVID, I know it's challenging to wipe that out. But if you were to wipe out the COVID thing, what was Turkey like?
I mean, I loved the food there, the baklava, the lamb, the skewers. It was amazing. My wife, though, if you know Chinese, they love Chinese food. And so after 4 months there, she couldn't stand Turkish food anymore. And so we basically, the last 2 or 3 months, went to a Japanese place and a Nepal/Thai place that we ate almost every day. So, but Turkey is awesome. We should go back. But during COVID, it was very hard. I remember one time I got all this notary, and then when I went to the highest level to get approved, they said, "Hey, you did this all wrong." And I remember that. So it was already 3 or 4 months of trying to get these notaries, and the last day I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to start over. And I almost wanted to give up. It was like the hardest time. I just wanted to just say, yeah, I guess we're in Turkey the rest of our lives, and I don't know if we'll ever get back to America. And I remember just walking. I just remember hearing something in my voice says, "Don't give up." So I think that's the lesson I learned there, is that the only way you lose is when you give up. But part of that is the resilience of being able to take just one step forward. And it just so happened, by God's grace, that I was able to get all that notary done. That took me weeks to do, all in one day, up to that Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which they approved, and we were able to submit it to Taiwan. The other issue with Taiwan is that, if you guys don't know, mainland China and Taiwan, there's a little bit of a kerfuffle, a little like disagreement on who the real China is. Since my wife is mainland Chinese, Taiwan couldn't approve her visa until it went back to Taiwan. So they wouldn't allow the regional, they call it TECOs, the economic cultural centers, to approve it. So there's a lot more issues there, but finally we got to Taiwan. We were there for a year. Wife got the green card, and then we moved to the U.S. in July of 20. Wow, this has already been 3 years now. The reason I know this is, as soon as we got to America, we got pregnant, and my daughter, who is now 2 years old. So I know how long my wife's name is Grace, has been in America, because it's not my daughter's age plus 9 months. So that's in July. So that's been almost 3 years now in America.
Wow. So your main point was, once we get back to America, we're getting down to business. We're forgetting all this other stuff. We're getting down to business. James, you can't make this up, man. This is like, listening to this story and hearing what you and your frame and what you did through COVID or through lockdown, and how you were hopping in different countries.
Let me explain. I forgot this all, but we didn't know anybody in Turkey. So you know what we did? In China, they have something called 小红书, which is basically the red notebook.
小红书?
Yeah, small little red book, which is red notebook.
Okay.
And so it's basically like the I would say like the Reddit of China. And so we basically looked for an influencer in Turkey who has a boyfriend who would help us get a marriage license. But we were in Istanbul, and he's like, "I can't help you in Istanbul. If you come to my hometown in Diyarbakir." Where's Diyarbakir? It's like 3 hours west of Syria. So we flew in this little town called Diyarbakir, there's a town called Batman there. And basically we had this guy we just met on the internet just showing us around different places to get our marriage license so that we could finally go to Taiwan. I mean, it was just the craziest things you would do when you're desperate and you don't know anybody. So anyway, so.
Wow. You can't make this up.
It was a hard time.
Look how you turned out.
Oh, that's why I'm grateful to be here. So we go back to your original question. What are you grateful for? Grateful to be here in America. I mean, it's 4th of July tomorrow. You guys don't understand like the crazy freedom we have in America to do what we can do, to be able to say what we can say. And so to celebrate, when you live in other countries, you realize that being in America, yes, it has its faults, it has its issues, but to be in America, have this we call that like a melting pot, but it's more like a mosh pit. I remember one of my professors said a mosh pit of different cultures that were fighting for that don't look like us. Like in China, like if you don't look like them, it's kind of like, okay, you're obviously a foreigner. In America, you don't look the same, but we all kind of grew up in this cultural revolution of trying to understand each other, our cultural background, but we have this similarity of being an American as an Asian American, Chinese American, Polish American. And so being in this, like even this town, there's similarities that you can relate to. I mean, I give this example, like we talk about from high school, Bob Ferguson. We also talk about, I don't know, the Palindrome, or what's the other one? Oh man, I forgot. But,
I know Palindrome.
Palindrome. That was the place to be in the Northwest suburbs. That was the
yes.
spot. My dad used to go to the Alumni Club, which is like off of
the Alumni Club. It's now drink.
Yes, that's right, because he used to work at Motorola. So we know Schaumburg.
Yeah, who didn't?
Exactly. So anyways, just to be able to relate and say, oh man, we went there and had those memories, but that instant connection that would normally take, if you know somebody without the commonalities, would take weeks or months. But in an instant, even being in Northwest suburbs, in the hometown in Chicago, you could be like, oh man, I know that place. And you got this instant commonality to connect and then talk and know about each other from their different backgrounds, but also their common backgrounds as well. So it's great. 4th of July and being in America. So grateful to be here and just know everybody, even on the chats and the people that I haven't known for a while, some old friends. You know, when Dave asked me to do this, one of the requirements, not the requirements, but the ask is to invite people that you've known, because that's, just to
invite people to be on live.
Yeah, be on live.
Show,
which I appreciate. Yeah, so I appreciate it on live. And so for me, and this is one wise awareness, is like I just had some hesitant feelings because some of these people, I haven't seen you guys for 10, 20 years and 30 years, and they're different chapters of my life. And I feel like you're always growing, you're different mindsets back there. So to be able to invite people, it's partly my privacy, but also once again, my idea of being vulnerable and saying, hey man, some of the things, when you ask, like, are there any regrets in life? It's like some of the things I did in the past, like I could have done better. And so like some people knew me in a certain light, and now this growth mindset is like, we all change. And so one of these things where I had to get over was to allow people to see that that even though in my past, to see where I am now, and the differences that's happened from where you thought you were going to be 10, 20 years ago. When you're a new United States military West Point grad, you're like, oh, I'm going to change the world. And then maybe 25 years later, like, you know what? I'm just in my hometown and trying to be the best I can to influence and be a positive impact for not just the community that's raised me, but for the legacy and the people that are going to come follow me. And so that's how my mindset is now, is just how can I be a positive impact and value? Rigu always talks about be a value person. Katie just said it too. How do I provide value to other people? Because I want people to be successful, because that's my goal, not just financial, but hey, we all are trying to help each other be the best people we can be. So anyway, so that's it.
I think that's a great way to end. I always ask this question. James, what does living beyond default mean to you?
Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying before, is that we are all conditioned by our parents, our teachers, expectations society has placed on us. To live beyond default, I think you have to be aware of where you're at. So in the military, we call it land navigation. They tell you a point, objective you have to go to, but before you can even get there, you have to do what we call, if you have a compass, you have to find out where you're at, make an assessment where you're at. So part of being aware is knowing where you are emotionally, knowing your triggers, even your traumas, your past, your background. So you understand how you're taking that subconscious into the conscious. Once it's in the conscious, you can make a decision and a choice of whether you want to listen to that and what you want to do to change back. So so that is what I say living beyond default. It's not just the default. It's about moving past that to make those choices to make positive and active change in your life. So Chris, good to see you, man.
I love that. That is a great way to end the show. All right. So we're done. We've said enough. I don't want to say anymore, because this is what it's all about. It's just creating the space here, live from the loft, downtown Arlington Heights, live beyond default. It's really about just creating the space for growth, for opportunity, for people to share, and for people to really connect and broadcast their wisdom and their knowledge to others. And I so appreciate all of you, whether you're watching live on one of the many platforms, or of course, watching or listening to the replay, share, like, comment. And if you don't like something, we love feedback, whether it's good or bad, because all feedback is good because we're going to learn. We're going to learn from it. So thank you again for watching this episode. My name is Dave.
I'm James Cheng.
And until next time, make it a great week. And we'll see you with Kat Mendez coming up the next time.
There you go. I would do that. Do you have the heart? Yes. Worked. Arlington Heights, the future possible home of the Chicago Bears.
For sure.
Okay, sorry.